same time, and then we can edit anything out if needed. But yeah, if you come back, like this probably won't be published for maybe 2 to 3 weeks. But if there's something you say like, oh, I don't want to have that in there, we'll be able to fix that.
Perfect.
All right, wonderful. So yeah, welcome to the podcast.
Awesome, thank you. Happy to be here.
Absolutely. So we'll start off the same place that everybody else does. From growing up to middle school, what were your activities like? What did you do as a kid?
All right. So we had this kind of unspoken rule in my house where you do a sport every season or you get a job. That came on later in life. So I was a super, super energetic kid where I was like jumping off the couch and doing all this stuff. So my parents got me involved in literally everything, like throw everything at the wall and then see what sticks. So my brother played soccer growing up, and then my family came from a really big basketball family, but you can't see this, but I'm 5'1", so I wasn't destined to be the biggest basketball player, but I got involved in soccer and I really liked it to an extent, and then started doing cartwheels down the field, and then they said, you know what, let's throw her in gymnastics. So I was a gymnast for about 14 years. So I started gymnastics when I was 3, and was very competitive with it for a while. Did that all year round. And then when I got to about 8 years old or so, some of my friends were also in dance. So I got involved in being a dancer. And then through once I got to high school and stuff, I stopped gymnastics and then competitively danced a little bit more so, but still did sports around. But I did really, really like gymnastics. And that was like the hardest breakup of my life was when I stopped that when I was just getting out of middle school. But I finished after winning states when I was 13. I was like, that was really cool.
So not just regular gymnastics, like competitive.
Yeah. So I was really competitive for a while, for about like 4 to 6 years of like really competitive work. And then it just got to the point that the gym that I was at was a small facility, and there was probably only another level or 2 I could have progressed, but I started to get really anxious as I had to do a little more difficult skills, especially with beam. And it got to the point that I was such a mental basket case where we would have to do different series on beam, and I would get to the point that I'd need a spot. And then when it would come time to compete, obviously you can't have someone spot you in a meet. But I was so in my head that my coach just had to poke me with a finger, and then I'd go. Like I would, to do a back handspring, she just had to like touch me. Like I had this mental thing where she had to be there. So it got to the point that I think I was like, I hit my peak. I really thought I did my damage in that sport, and it was almost time for high school. So then I wanted to try some different high school sports that kind of took me away from that, but I still continued to dance as well.
So I've had a couple of gymnasts on here, and it sounds that what were the hours that you were putting in weekly? What did training look like?
So as you get older or higher up in some of the levels that you were in, the volume increases obviously, but I don't think I was ever going less than 2 days a week from the start of being 3 years old. So I think you start there, and then by the time I was in high school, it was about 4 days a week or I guess not high school, but the end. About 4 days a week for about 3 hours a day. Your weekday workouts were typically more event routine focused, and then Saturday mornings was 3 hours of conditioning.
Wow, 3 hours. So what did that conditioning look like? Is it running? Is it push? Like what does conditioning look like for a gymnast?
Yeah, so it's like so hard to think about what our actual workouts were now, working a little more in the fitness industry. But I remember when I was young, it was just like you would dread Saturdays because we'd get in there and you'd run around for about 15, 20 minutes around the floor, just getting used to it. And then it got to the point that sometimes when you got older, they would have us do like runs around the block, because summertime was usually when we'd have team camp, and that's when our conditioning would go up a lot more. But Saturday mornings you would do like bleachers in our facility. We had just like small ones, so we would do diagonal bleachers, or you do like pretty lunges up the bleachers, but everything had to always look pretty proper. So we would do some running, some lunging, some kind of just endurance stuff. And then everything was very skill focused, where you would do like handstand push-ups, you would do handstand walks for laps around the floor. And then we
handstand walk laps.
Yeah. So you'd go like down the floor, down the floor, turn around, come back. Like obviously if you'd come down, the floor was sectioned off into 3 different sections. So I don't know if you ever watch kind of the CrossFit games or things that way. When they do handstand walks, they walk to a certain line. And if they don't get there, they have to either start over or go back to that last checkpoint. So we would do things kind of like that, or we would do like handstand shoulder taps. So you'd be on your hands and then you'd have to do like 100 taps before you can move on to the next station. So obviously you wanted to do as many as you could before you came out of your handstand.
Yeah.
But yeah, we would do different things like that. Sometimes they were timed or sometimes they were rep focused.
Yeah, I think when people think conditioning now, it's like, oh, like an hour just like on the treadmill or on the rower or the bike or whatever it is. And it's like kind of steady state cardio, but gymnastics conditioning, not so much.
No, it would be, so we would do tons of pull-ups. We would do obviously like a lot of sit-ups and like pretty ab exercises. I just have to say that everything was like just pretty. But pointed toes. So you do ab exercises. We would do kind of the equivalent of like a pistol squat. So you do like a single leg dip off the beam. There was like so many weird things that we had to do, and I wish I could remember all of them, but that was kind of the gist of it. Lots of abs, lots of upper body work.
So could everyone just do it? And they like, what would happen if someone's like, because like if I start doing X amount of pull-ups, like I can't do anymore. Like once my handstand walks go, not that they're going anywhere, but when they do stop, there's no chance in the next 5 minutes that I'm going to be able to match that. So what would happen, or did that ever? Everyone was just, this is what we're doing.
I think it's just ingrained in you at such a young age what your body's like abilities are. So you spend as like the very fundamentals are getting comfortable being upside down and then building that upper body strength and that core stability to hold yourself in those positions for a long period of time. So I remember we would do exercises on the bars. We would do 3 chin-ups and a pullover. So chin-up, 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 pullover. And so we would do, well, I guess they're pull-ups, but gymnasts always called these ones chin-ups and these ones pull-ups. I don't know why. But we would do 3 chin-ups and a pullover. A pullover is where you get your feet up and over the bar, and then you're on the top, bring it down, do it all again. So we would have to do stuff like that. And it was just so discouraging. I remember when I was so young that I couldn't get 3 in a row. So I would do 2, and then I jump up and do 1, and then I jump up and do a pullover. But it just kind of really like trains your muscles to just get used to it. And I just remember we had a team Icy Hot. It looked like a deodorant stick, but it was like, we thought we were so cool. Just a bunch of little girls like sharing this deodorant stick Icy Hot. I was like, we were like 10. And then we also all shared like a men's deodorant because we thought we were that cool.
There you go. So as far as what did nutrition look like as a gymnast and doing all of this? We're just eating as much as we can. What did that look like?
That's one thing I will give my gym a lot of credit for, is that they didn't push anyone to really be focusing on their nutrition at all. Like, I mean, granted, eat well, eat often, but it was more so on your family. So we were very fortunate that they didn't have any sort of micromanagement of our diets and what we were eating. So it was just kind of what you did at home. But most of our families were people who were very active, healthy families because they put us into sports and things. So we grew up with pretty healthy decisions, but it was never that we felt like we were restricted or that we were promoted in anything with our diet.
Yeah. So when you say eat healthy, eat often, that means like they were kind of telling you like, hey, your body is going to be this fuel. Like this is that kind of what they alluded to, or what was your kind of relationship as far as food went during these times?
I just ate what my parents made. I'll be honest. And we would have like a snack break in the middle of our Saturdays. I literally just remembered that, but we'd have like a 10-minute break, and that would usually be our snack breaks, and you'd eat whatever your mom packed for you at that time. But yeah, I was never really informed on anything nutrition, I don't think, until I got a little bit older.
Yeah. So what was the go-tos at home? Was it pretty much just, we have a protein, we have a carb, we have our veggies? What it looked like pretty much?
Yeah. It's so funny. Like my family's all a bunch of like pretty tiny people, but everything was meat. Like it was meat and potatoes for every dinner. Every dinner was usually meat and potatoes or meat and noodles. And then we'd have a vegetable, but my mom did not like vegetables. Still to this day, she does not. She likes like canned green beans, but she always thought I was weird because like I would try different weird vegetables, or where I'm from is just tons and tons of little like mom and pop pizza shops.
Oh,
So they we'd eat pizza like at least 2 to 3 times a week.
wonderful. So what kind of pizza are we talking? Is it Chicago style, New York?
New
What's
York style.
okay?
Hmm.
There you go.
Lots of
Uh,
shore pizza, kind of.
yeah,
Hmm.
very nice. So as far as you have gymnastics going on, it's taking up a majority of your time. Did you do anything as well as gymnastics, or pretty much life up until middle school, high school age was gymnastics?
So I dabbled in a little bit of everything. I did a little bit of CYO basketball, so like the Catholic youth
Hmm.
basketball teams. So I did some CYO basketball. So um, my dad was like a D1 basketball player.
Sweet.
Yeah, so he was a tiny fast guy. And then my cousin is the head coach at Virginia Commonwealth basketball team. So
Cool.
they're like a D1 school in Virginia that they've been doing pretty well through like March Madness and stuff. So I grew up with basketball being in my blood, but again, being like the nugget of the family.
Yeah.
I did my best, and I was really fast, but I was just like, it wasn't my sport. But I did that up through about 6th grade.
Hmm.
I played soccer for a couple years when I was young, and then that was about it. And then the summers, I got involved with our summer league diving program. So I started to get into diving. I didn't do swimming, but
Hmm.
that was kind of my little segue in the summer when gymnastics was a lot more. I shouldn't say low key, but we'd have morning practices, and then I got involved in like in the afternoons we'd go to the pool and have like diving practice.
That's super cool. So I bet the gymnastics helped when you first started diving. I was like, hey, you tell me to do this control wise. What was your coach's response when they're like, oh, try this, and then you just got after it?
Yeah, for sure. That's how it was. And my coach was like an ex gymnast as well, and he was great.
Nice.
But it was really funny though, you could still flip, and that's the same kind of mechanics, but having to like get power from the floor versus riding the power from a springboard is so different. So you're going like, so the floor in a gymnastics room
Yeah.
doesn't give as much, but it still has a little bit of bounce.
Yeah.
Whereas you can't push off the floor and get that much give out of a springboard. You have to ride it all the way down and time
Got
it,
it.
but you have to be patient, and that was not my thing. So that took a little while. Like I tried to like flip and I'd go just straight down. So trying to learn
Yeah.
how to like ride the board and then go
Yeah.
was kind of a different learning curve. But just the ability to just like get up and go and flip and not being afraid of being upside down,
Yeah.
not a problem.
That's super cool. So was this for school? Was this for like a travel team? I don't know what the
Yeah.
swim scene is like at that.
Yeah. So where I was, we had like our Schuylkill. So I was from a place called Schuylkill County, which is super, super small. But every school district had their own pool or board and stuff like that. So
Nice.
every school district had a little swim team and diving team in the summertime. That was usually for people before they got to high school.
Okay.
So it was a lot higher volume of swimmers. So people
Mhm.
who did like summer swim leagues, but some schools did have the diving opportunity. So my school
Mhm.
district had that. So that was what we did. So we would just go kind of locally, like 10 to 15 minutes to the other school districts around us.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah,
Very fun.
very fun. It was
Um,
really cool.
so then we're transferring from middle school gymnastics into high school and dance. How did you get introduced to it? You said it was a friend that was kind of suggesting it, or what? How did we get there?
Yeah. So when I was dancing, one of my really, really good friends who was in dance and gymnastics with me would swim in the summers. And she said she started diving, and she had a diving board at her house, and we would dive there. And then she was like, why don't you just come out for it with me in the summer? And I did. And I like fell in love with it. It was just such a
Yeah.
fun experience. And it was just something different, but it's something that I felt came a little natural to me.
Mhm.
So I got involved with doing that. And then when I got to high school, and like I mentioned in the beginning, you do a sport every season or you get a job. And now
Yeah.
I'm old enough to get a job and I don't want to get one. So when I was in middle school or junior high, we had a track team. So I joined our track team and
Mhm.
loved that, was a sprinter and a jumper. And then our track coach in middle school was also the cross country coach in the high school.
Okay.
So naturally I ran cross country, which
How was that?
It was terrible. It wasn't really great. Um, I wasn't good at it, but I tried my best, and
Mhm,
I did that every year. I would always like try to strive to at least be like top 5 on my team. So
mhm.
until my senior year, I usually was, but then we got a bunch of young, fast, really good girls my senior year. So I was just
Yeah,
the one to captain and cheer them on. So that was nice. But
yeah. So as
uh,
far as going from a gymnastics practice, which is 3 hours and just brutal, all different muscle types, going to cross country, what was the difference in training like for you?
so uh, kind of summer practices leading up to, so cross country's in the fall. So the summer we'd get up in the morning, and sometimes we'd have 2-a-days where in the evenings we would do kind of like threshold training, which would be like sprint training in the evening. And
Yeah.
then in the mornings we would have a longer run. Other times they would tell us to lift with telling telling a high school cross country team to lift. It was just kind of like go spend an hour in the weight room, just throw some things around,
Yeah.
swing on the lat pull down, call it a day. Um,
So
so
they didn't give you a specific split or periodization or
no,
nothing like that.
no, no, they would have us run, and so we would do probably like an hour. Like our practice would be like about an hour 15 minutes with
Mhm.
active warm up, stretch and cool down as a team, and then we'd have some sort of like strategies or talk to our coach about specific programming that we would be doing moving forward, or she'd have like mileage goals or time goals for us throughout the week. But
Mhm.
it was kind of cool. Like there, you'd always find somebody who was about your speed, and
Okay.
you can just like run and talk with them. My first 2 to 3 years, we weren't very competitive, so we did really enjoy it. We had a really close team, and
Yeah.
then we got some really awesome runners later on. One went to go run at Tennessee, and I think she had like sponsor protocols with like some different running
That's
companies
super
later
cool.
on. Yeah, so it was really cool to kind of see how our program evolved, but
Yeah.
um then it got a little, I shouldn't say got stressful, but I was just like, wow, I suck at this, but I'll be here for moral support for everyone.
So do you think the program evolved due to the coaching, or it was just the people coming in were just fantastic?
A little bit of both. I think our coach was always great, and she was a really good runner. But I
Yeah.
think she was able to push the programming a little more when people were really good runners too. Like, so she
Got
was
it.
like the people who were running when I was like finishing up high school loved running and they loved racing. So she was able to kind of like feed off of their energy and bring her
Yeah.
like own
That
stuff rather
helps.
than, yeah, rather than just being like, all right, this is our mileage this week and let's go. And that's nothing against her. That is
Yeah.
completely people who want to do it and people who are just like, I'm here, I'm moving.
Yeah, for sure. So did you also have was swimming a school year in high school, or was that just summer for high school?
No, so for high school, it was in the winter.
Okay.
So that was in the winter. And my first year or my first 2 years, I just dove. And then I figured I was like, I got to do something to also stay in shape. And because I was leaving school, going to an aerobics class, then coming to diving practice, and then going to dance because I felt like I needed to do more cardio stuff. I don't know. I'm nuts. But so I was like taking
So
step aerobics, then I'd go dive, and then I'd go to dance.
so was this a body image, or was this just something that you're like, hey, I should be working out more?
I think it was, yeah, just like the volume of like, I guess thinking about doing like my cardio stuff, I always thought it was different than doing dance. Like it was almost like I needed to have a workout in, and then dance was like something I did for fun or for my team more so.
Yeah.
So it felt, yeah, now looking back, I never really thought of it like that. But I didn't really have anything body image until like even later than that. But
Yeah.
yeah, I think it was just one of those. I really loved track, so I wanted to stay in shape for that,
Got it.
um, even though it was kind of a different.
For sure. Was there anybody throughout high school that you were kind of looking up to as far as a mentor, somebody you wanted to be like, just in general?
I think in every sport I had, there was like the seniors that you really looked up to and um, wanted to kind of follow in their shoes. Like the best athlete on the team, I'd always chase after. Like I remember there was one who was just always super positive and really good in cross country. then in diving, it was actually one of the girls I used to do gymnastics with, who was a senior when I was a freshman, but she was at a different school.
Cool.
And it was always one of those things where I looked up to her, but I always wanted to beat her as well. I was like chasing after trying to catch up with her and beat her when it came to like diving season.
Mhm.
And then there was a girl on our track team who was super, super positive, and she went on to be like a really competitive, like bikini competitor later on, but she just always had a really good positive attitude and worked so hard. So there was like a lot of really positive role models just within those settings.
Well, yeah, I was going to point out, it sounds like you enjoy the positivity of what people are putting off for sure.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Much easier to follow in their footsteps when it's a joyful experience.
Absolutely. Oh, for sure.
So with all the athletics going on, what was academics like for you? Was it just hanging out with friends? Was it learning? Did we like a specific subject or?
So my dad and most of his side of the family was all teachers. So academics was huge. So it was one of those things like you get all your practice, like all practices done, and then you come home, you sit at your desk and you get everything done that way. So academics was really big for us and our family, like very, very strict, like try not to procrastinate, but I always like to say pressure makes diamonds. So I was still a procrastinator, but academics was really, really huge in our family.
Yeah. So I mean, you probably didn't have too much time to procrastinate with all the sports going on. So what did procrastination look like for you? Was it like 15, 20 minutes, or was it like big papers or?
It would be like if it was just homework to get done, it happened in homeroom sometimes.
Yeah.
Like just if I'd be coming home from practice, I'd get home from dance at like 8:30, 9 o'clock. And if I'd be dead, I'd just like go to sleep and then be like, oh, I'll get up early and get it done, or I'll just do it in homeroom.
Yeah.
Like, it got to the point where I was like not telling my parents when I had homework to do because I'd be like, I'll get it done.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how that worked. And then when I got older, I feel like it was one of those things that I just ended up procrastinating everything until like I was really close to the deadline. It was almost like the thrill of it.
Yeah. Well, there you go. So as far as your parents being teachers and stuff like that, did that lead you to your steps for looking for schools, or what was your thought process while moving on to the next steps?
Yeah, so my mom worked for a Commonwealth campus of Penn State. So I grew up, had baby pictures in Penn State clothes. Like that's what I was doing. That's where I was going. My mom actually wanted me to look at a bunch of different schools. And I would go to some summer camps like throughout high school for different sports. So I went to a few track camps, and then I went to diving camp once at different colleges, and they were all at kind of D3 schools. And I would talk to the coaches and I'd be interested in going there, but it never felt like college. Like Penn State felt like going to college.
Yeah.
So I knew that's kind of the route I wanted to go when it came to that point.
So we're going to Penn State, were we doing any sports? Was it club sports? What was the move?
So because I was like super involved in dance, I really wanted to dance, and that's kind of all that was on my mind. So when I came to college, or the spring before I started college, I auditioned for our Lionettes team, which is like the sideline dancers. So I auditioned, didn't make it the first time, and then I auditioned the second year. So at the end of my freshman year, and I made it through all the dance cuts, and then I didn't make the team, and I was devastated. But I then found group fitness instructing there. And while I was a freshman, I did also take some time competing with the club gymnastics team, but I was 4 years out of the sport. So it was just for fun. Like there was, anybody could go compete, throw whatever routines you want together. Like, I don't even remember what any of my scores were, and I didn't care. It was just something to get involved in when I got there, and I didn't have dance. I didn't have my team. So it was a really good way to meet people and get started. But when I think that might have been me, sorry. When I didn't make the dance team the second time, I knew I had to find something to like get moving and to be a part of. So here at Penn State, the group fitness instructors were like a sports team in themselves. Like they had their own backpacks. They were their own team, and it was huge here. So I went through a one-year program to become a fitness instructor here at Penn State. And that was like my everything. So I spent so much time with them, and it was it was really cool. So that's kind of how I evolved from being involved in sports and valuing activity to starting more so in the fitness industry.
So that was the name of the title. So group fitness instructor. Is that a bunch of different classes? That is the major. What's the classification of that again?
So that was just my part-time job. So you go through a 1 year, it was actually like 2 academic courses to become an instructor. So it was within the kinesiology department. So at the time that I started going towards being a fitness instructor, I also changed my major to be kinesiology, which is exercise science or movement science here on campus. And you don't have to be a kines major to be a fitness instructor, but it just kind of worked for me. That's kind of what I wanted to do. Let me turn this off. So, oh my God. Anyways, so I was a fitness instructor. I taught everything from step aerobics, cycling, dance fitness courses like Zumba. I taught yoga, Pilates, boot camp. I taught a little bit of everything that you could here, because my goal by the end of it was to teach every single class that we offered. So I was able to do that. I didn't do all of them perfectly, I'll give you that much. But
so who are you teaching this to? Is this to Gen Pop? Is this to college? Who's your audience?
So primarily it was college students, but faculty and staff could also get their gym membership. So we could teach to faculty staff at certain times, but typically you teach to college students. So you're teaching to your peers.
So and is that a class that they sign up for, or it's part of their gym membership, or how does that work for them?
So that is part of their gym membership here. After a few years, they ended up doing some fee for service classes that were a little more specialty courses in some of our smaller group training rooms that just had a little more unique equipment and things that way. But typically everything was offered under their gym membership that they could attend. We offered about 200 classes a week, which was really cool, across 3 different locations on campus. Wow. Yeah, we had tons. It was so cool.
So what was the I would say the college population probably at your school is in decent shape, or at least the people showing up.
Yeah, so we definitely had a lot of classes. So this one class called Power Remix, which was everyone's favorite. It was my favorite. It was the reason I even started teaching. It was like a dance fitness class. It was essentially Zumba, but to American pop songs rather than Latin stuff. So people felt a lot more comfortable with a lot of it, because it was 75% fitness and then like 25% just like shaking around. So everyone loved that. And our afternoon classes at 4:30, we would get upwards of like 130 to 200 people in our class.
My Lord, where would you be doing the class at?
We used it in one of our recreational gyms. So one of the basketball courts.
That must have been that's a lot of people.
Yeah, it was awesome. It was so fun.
That's very cool. So yeah, when we're in school, what did our eating look like at that point?
Well, my freshman year, I was like super, super terrified of getting the freshman 15. And I wasn't, I just was not digging myself that much. I was afraid. It was my coming off of my first summer, not having cross country all summer. I already put on like some weight just because my activity changed so much. And then when I got to school, I was like really obsessed with it. So for the first month or so of school, I didn't go out. I was like very well monitoring like what I was eating, because I was just afraid. And then I was just like not having that great of a time. And my parents were like, Kels, go out, do something, have fun. And then they regretted saying that later. But so anyways, I kind of got lax with it. I would try to make sure I was like making the best choices as I could throughout the first like 2 to 3 years. And then when I turned 21, I just didn't care at all. And that's when I was teaching the most classes I had. I was like, I'm teaching 10 classes a week. Like I'm moving, but then it's also like I was going out a lot. I was making really poor life decisions.
Probably not recovering the best.
Never. Recovery that wasn't a word in my vocabulary. But,
so what was did the weight start creeping up even though we were doing all the coaching? How was it? The scale? Was it the clothes? What was kind of?
So it was a lot of it in the face, but I So I gained probably about like 15 to 20 pounds like my senior year. And it was just like, I wish I would have gone back in time and looked a little more at body composition, because since like my weight on the scale hasn't changed a whole lot here and there, like, give or take maybe 10 pounds in the last couple of years, but it was just all like body composition. Like I was just not eating well, and I was just never lifting weights or anything. But anyways, I gained weight, and then I could just see it in pictures, and I would like find myself making sure I posed in a certain way and not posting pictures in a certain way, just because I didn't like how I looked, but it wasn't enough to like change my behaviors at the time, because I was just like, I'm in college, like it's Thursday.
Yeah. So, and I think body composition is a good way to put it, because someone can be 130 pounds and be 10, 12, 50% body fat and be fine. And then they can be 135 pounds and like 25, 30% body fat. So definitely a difference there. So yeah, as what's kind of our next steps that we're moving on with there?
Yeah, so I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. So I had my I graduated with my bachelor's in kinesiology and a minor in biology. And one of my supervisors, when I was a fitness instructor, she said that she did this graduate program where all you have to do is teach fitness classes, and they pay for your master's. And I was like, okay, cool, because I don't know what I want to do with my life.
Sounds like a great plan.
Yeah, so I went to the University of Pittsburgh.
Okay.
Where I got my master's in health, physical activity, and chronic disease.
Okay.
And while I was there, I was teaching about 15 classes a week. And the classes I was teaching were to undergraduate students who were taking PE courses, or those physical activity courses for credit. So they would meet twice a week, and it would pretty much just be like, we put them through a workout and they got an attendance grade. So
not too bad.
That wasn't too bad. So I would teach Monday through Thursday, about 3 classes a day. And then I taught a virtual corporate wellness program, and I was teaching a couple free Fitness Friday classes for a fee for service for faculty and staff and community members.
So the corporate wellness, what was that like for you? Was that the first time doing virtual stuff? What did that involve?
Yeah, so that was a really interesting program that we did. So it was called Be Fit Pit, and it was pretty much a YouTube series where we would do different kind of wellness initiatives. So we would do, in October, we do the Spooky Strides campaign. So we would do different courses or different walking routes around campus. And then at the end of the month, everyone came in costume on Halloween, and we did either like a 1 mile walk or a 5K walk. I don't remember, something like that. So we would try to build people up some endurance to do something all together. And then we did, at the University of Pittsburgh, their most known building is this really tall Cathedral of Learning, it's called. And to get from the bottom to the top, it's 72 flights of stairs. So we did an initiative called Climbing Kathy. So we would do a progressive amount of steps throughout the week, or stair climbs throughout the week. And then at the end of that couple of weeks, we did the cathedral all together, where people came in and we printed out some different motivational things for people to read while they climb up all those flights of stairs. And it wasn't the way up that hurt, it was the way down. When you get to the bottom, your calves are like rocks. It was nuts. But so we did some things like that where they could come in person or do it online. And then we just had some different educational things like healthy snacks to have at your desk, or different things you can do to take an activity break at work without ruining your productivity.
Yeah. So while talking about the healthy snacks, what was school teaching you about food and nutrition, and what was going on in that area?
So in my coursework, so in my undergrad, we had to take a few nutrition courses. And then in the kinesiology department, we talked about just making sure that you're eating enough, but we didn't really ever dive fully into macro counting and things that way. But we did talk about different outcomes if you're not eating enough, like the female athlete triad, and some different, just a couple different things that your body needs. Like your body needs carbs because that's how you use energy. You need protein for recovery. You need fats for satiation and stuff. So we talked about that, but not in really detailed terms. And then when I went to grad school, there was 2 different tracks of my grad program you could have taken. There was a health and fitness practitioner one, or I went on the other one, which was kind of health and chronic disease research. Okay. So I didn't get as much of the fitness, nutrition, programming stuff as much as I went more so on the research
Mhm.
side and looking at epidemiology and chronic disease.
So you mentioned the women, you said triad and not eating
Mhm.
enough. So could you go a little deeper? Hopefully, I would say that's a big issue nowadays where it's just, hey, like I want to look thinner, I'm just not going to eat. Is that kind of what's more on that topic, I guess?
Yeah. So one of the biggest things when you talk about women in athletics is this kind of theory called the female athlete triad, which means that um, female athletes tend to have these three different health outcomes that affects one another. So the first one being there's an energy imbalance. So it doesn't mean that they're having an eating disorder, but they're having just an extreme imbalance of what they're burning and what they're taking in is
Mhm.
not equal. So it's causing some different things to happen in their body. The first one being amenorrhea, which means that they lose their periods. So your body, when you get to such a low level of body fat percentage, it puts
Mhm.
itself into what it seems to be starvation mode. So
Yeah.
what it does, it shuts off your ability to reproduce. So if we go back to Darwinism, and I don't mean to get like super nerdy, but if you go back to only the strongest will survive, if
Yes.
your body thinks it's in a starvation phase, it starts shutting off different processes that utilize energy or that kind of keep you from reproducing if it doesn't think you're strong enough to reproduce. So women
Yeah.
lose their periods, and then they'll also see a decreased bone mineral density. So that puts them
Mhm.
at a higher risk of um, osteoporosis and fractures and things in that manner. So by not eating enough and not having even just a high enough level of body fat percentage
Mhm.
above what your essential fat is, your body really starts to shut down different things. You can notice it not only in those things, but also your hair, skin, nails, energy
Right.
levels, and then your metabolism gets all sorts of out of
Yeah.
whack too.
So with women, as far as like getting a six pack, and I would say if you're looking between like a cross country runner and we'll just throw CrossFit Games in there, like I feel like the calories that they're eating is a lot different, and but the body fat percentage may be close to the same, but I hear a lot less from the CrossFit side of things because they do have a pretty low body fat percentage. Does it matter muscle as well, or is it kind of a not either way? Is kind of a negative.
It comes into it a little bit more so at your energy levels. So if we take protein out of the equation, you typically don't use protein for energy. You use your fats and your carbohydrates.
Yeah.
So it comes to an energy imbalance. Usually we always talk about calorie deficits, how you lose weight, but sometimes they lose body fat percentage or they lose their muscle. So it comes down to a point of just your body being out of balance because there's a lot of CrossFit athletes who experience symptoms of that because they're not treating their body with the proper nutrition, but then there's
Yeah.
other ones who don't experience that because they're getting enough energy. So making sure that you're not um necessarily like losing weight when you get to that point of having such a low
Right.
body fat percentage.
Yeah. And I think it was the women's national cross country team or the articles were coming out about that, and they're like, oh, we just need to lose weight, but that's not always the right thing.
No, so your body needs energy and your body can
Yes.
only store um like it stores only a little bit amount of carbohydrates in what you can do for just your food stores, but you need it in your muscles. You need it just around to be of readily use, especially cross country runners because they're
Mhm.
going for such long periods of time. They need to have a
Right.
little something to run off of.
Yeah. So if I'm correct, you have X amount of liver glycogen that is going to be used and it's stored, and then you have your muscle glycogen. And then what happens after that? After
So that's
that's
when you
been
start
used.
to go into that protein. You want to be in like protein sparing. So you get to the point that if you deplete your glycogen stores and you deplete some of your fat stores, your body's going to start to atrophy. It's going to start to eat away at your muscle. It's going to take protein out of your
Yeah.
muscles, which is just counterproductive if you're thinking about performance.
Right. And I'm pretty sure this example is correct, but a lot of marathoners or ultra marathoners, when you see them crawling and things of that nature, is that because their body is shutting down because it doesn't have the fuel? I've been told that it's kind of like trying to have them just not do anything because they're breaking down their body.
I think it's case by case situation. I think sometimes it could be energy levels or it could
Yeah.
be that like the overload of, oh my gosh, words are hard, lactic acid and stuff, that their body just like stops. Like if they go to that sprint, your body just needs more oxygen to get rid of it. And if they're going at such high intensities, especially at the end, it's going to cause them to collapse if they don't have anything to run off of. And then, yeah, like I think sometimes there's just that overworking of your muscles that they start to shut down too, because they just don't have energy and they're not recovered enough to just keep going.
Yeah, for sure. So then you're learning all this stuff in college and getting your master's. How did that change your either relationship with food, or what did planning and prepping and all that stuff look like?
Yeah, so when I got to grad school, I was surrounded by a lot of different people who had different health and wellness journeys. So I was on campus for like 13 hours a day, so I had to prepare my food. So I was
a long time.
Yeah, because we didn't have parking passes. Not bitter about it to this day. But you had
wait. How do you not have a parking pass? How does that work out?
That is a story for another day. But anyways, we didn't have parking passes, so you had to get onto campus by like 6 a.m. to get a parking spot on the street, so you didn't get towed, or you didn't get ticketed.
Yeah.
So we'd have to get there early, and classes usually started at 8 a.m. like the ones that we taught. So you get in early, and we'd be there. So I'd bring my breakfast, I'd bring some snacks, and I'd bring my lunch and dinner. So I had to prepare things, and it's a lot easier to prepare just like healthy, basic foods. So I was doing that a lot more. So, but then like my weekends, I was like, screw this. I moved enough this week, and I'll whatever I want, and I'll party and call it a day. So we would do pizza Sundays in my apartment a lot, which was nice.
So what did meal prepping planning look like? Were you doing it on Sunday, just planning it out and prepping? Was it 7 days? Was it 3-4 days? What did that look specifically like for you?
Yeah, so I would do 4 days. I would usually have something like light for breakfast. So I didn't prepare breakfast, and then I would probably I would usually make like wraps for lunch, and then I'd have dinner, which would be like rice or quinoa with a meat and a vegetable. So I would have that. I didn't really get creative because it was like the first time I was really prepping and cooking for myself, and I just kept it pretty basic, lots of hot sauce. So
that helps.
Yeah, so kept it really basic, but I would prep from Monday through Thursday, and then because Fridays were usually a shorter day, so I would just kind of a lot of times we'd like go out to eat on Fridays and stuff. So I would do the Monday through Thursday, and I kind of kept up with that routine for almost like a couple years of like I would do Sundays to prepare for the first couple days of the week. But it got to the point that I would be so sick of eating stuff by day 3. So I ended up doing a bunch of different meals to kind of switch out throughout the week.
So when you were making these meals, was it something like, oh man, I have to do this, or was it more so enjoyable? It's like, I got this done, and it kind of became habitual routine, or what was your scenario on that?
I would say I went through some ebbs and flows with that. Sometimes I got excited, or I always loved when my Sunday was like productive. Sometimes it would be hard to get out of bed to do it, but I would just like, it was that sense of accomplishment of like, I did something today. I didn't sit on the couch and watch Grey's Anatomy all day and then say, oh, I have to do it. But I would like, I would be pretty proud of doing it. It would just, I'd need that little kick in the butt to get myself out of bed to go and do it.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people, or for college students, hopefully they'll get around to this episode. Was it perfect every time you did it? Was it hard to find recipes? What was it, more so of a process, or it just kind of came easy to you?
I like never really followed recipes and stuff. My mom really liked to cook, but she would always she'd always buy spices, and she'd be like, I'm not going to use this whole thing. So she would just give me she always called them her little drug bag. She's like, I got a drug bag of sage for you. So next time you go back, and then she got really into gardening. So she would make some herbs and then dry them out and then give me stuff. So I played around with a lot of different spices, but I wasn't one to really look up recipes and stuff until later on. But I think once I eventually did start looking stuff up, I was enjoying meal prepping, and it made it easier if I wanted to eat some things more than 2 times a week. So I think that was the hardest part about it, is that I didn't really look anything up, or I didn't get a lot of different ingredients in. So it was just really bland stuff for a while.
But you still managed for a decent amount. What would you say on a scale of like 1 to 10 were your cooking skills when you started? at your program?
I Well, I don't think I'm ever gonna be like a great chef, but
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't undercook or burn my chicken, so I felt
Mhm.
like chicken and ground turkey is like everyone's staple to get started. Like, I don't think
Yes.
I ever did any, I never made any red meat myself
Okay.
until I was a little bit older. I didn't trust myself with it. I would go back and forth whether I liked things rare or not, anyways.
Yeah.
So I didn't really make a whole lot of seafood or red meat. So it was mainly just like ground turkey, chicken.
Mhm. And at that point, were you looking at macros? Were you looking at calories? How did you figure out what you were planning for?
I think I was at that point, I was just making sure that I was just trying to eat as much like whole foods, not processed stuff a
Yeah.
lot, like trying not to snack as much, not to eat what I consider just like crap calories. So just making
Yeah.
sure that it was just like good stuff that kept me full but made me feel good too.
Yeah. And I would say I think that's a mistake a lot of people make is whenever they usually start meal prepping, they're going to be at a calorie deficit and it's not going to taste as good. So like
Absolutely.
the first week or two goes great. It's like, oh, I've lost 5 pounds, but I don't eat this anymore. And it's not filling me up.
So
So
yeah, I have like a little bit of a story with that going back to high school and stuff. So my mom at work was able to get on to Weight Watchers for free, which was like very unheard of at the time. And she's like, let's do this together. I was 16. I didn't need to get on that. But so what it is, it's essentially macros counting, but it's
yeah.
just in a different code, which is points. So
Yeah. I was
in
going to say,
my
how
head,
many points do you have?
yeah. So everyone had like pretty much the same amount of points when you get started. But me being so active, I I was like almost like challenged not to eat my points for the day. So I
Yeah.
had more. So
Right.
then it got to the point that I experienced what I was telling you earlier about like female athlete triad stuff. Like I wasn't eating enough. And then also because I was so obsessed with tracking, if I fell off, I like fell off like really bad. So I think that started a pretty tough cycle
Yeah.
with super counting and not eating enough and then going
Yeah.
crazy because I'm starving. So
Hmm.
I went back and forth with a cycle of that. And at times it still happens again if I do get
Right.
back onto counting a lot. But what I found when I was in grad school was really um just making sure that you eat enough and you just like
Hmm.
pick good stuff
Yeah.
and don't restrict too much.
For sure. Yeah. And I think people miss or don't understand or take lightly what maintenance is and what that is for your body. And that's like where your body wants to be. So if you figure out what that is, then you can kind of make the moves from there. Um, so yeah, we're actually I want to say one thing on Weight Watchers. I'm pretty sure they changed their name, and I think the owner or something like that came out and said, yeah, it's really hard to like stick to a diet or follow a program. So for
Mind blown.
I feel like maybe come out with a different program, but that's just me. Um, so when we're going through school, the last part of the program was for diseases. Is that chronic illness? What was
Yep. So it was health, physical activity, and chronic disease.
chronic disease? Okay.
So we got involved with a lot of research on campus. So at the University of Pittsburgh, they're very heavily involved in the UPMC network, so their medical center network.
Okay.
So we had a really good relationship with the bariatric surgery unit. So we did a lot of physical activity interventions with people who underwent weight loss surgeries
Hmm.
because there was so much proof that after they lose all of that within the first 6 months, they start to gain back or gain back more in the long term. So we actually worked with Weight Watchers doing a study on the efficacy of their program and a new app or something.
Yeah.
And then we worked with the bariatric surgery unit to do almost like a behavioral intervention and educate people on
Hmm.
movement rather than just weight loss. It was a lot more of movement and behavior change than it was to just go through it and like I hit my weight and now back to normal.
Right. So what was some of the how was it working with Weight Watchers? Did they just say like, hey, people need to do this specific thing? Did they talk longevity? What was kind of their so did they fund it or how did that
I believe that they funded it. So what I was only there for 1 year and it was a
okay.
longitudinal study. So what I was in the part of was in the recruitment process. So they were using us to test a new app and
Got
the
it.
were people able to stick with it and was it user friendly? I think it was the efficacy of the intervention itself.
Okay.
Um, So I was just a little more so on the recruitment side, where we would just do like really straightforward just calls of people who sent in that they were interested in doing the study. But it was looking more so on the app and the efficacy of that.
Yeah. Did you or anybody that you were working around, did you guys ever find something like, hey, this is working for like 70, 60, 80% of people? What was something that you saw that worked for a lot of patients?
Yeah, so one program that I helped with was called this Making the Move program. So it was for people who just underwent their surgery. I think they had to be within like 3 or 6 months of going through it, and we did a group intervention. So we had a group of about 8 women who underwent this surgery. They all kind of came together, and we did a group-based intervention where we would educate them on what it means to be physically active, like what the guidelines are, how active they should be, what that means intensity wise. And then every week we took them through a different modality of fitness. So we took them the first week just to the cardio machines. And these are people who've never been active. So being in a group, learning together, we took them through every different cardio machine that we had in our fitness center and said, these are the settings, these are how to work it. Because that's a lot of things for people who've never done it. They don't want to go because there's too many buttons and too many settings. So we took them there. We walked them through all the cardio machines the first time. Then the next week we did resistance machines, and then we did free weights, and then we did group fitness classes. So we walked them through all these different things. And then at the end of those 4 weeks, they got one-on-one sessions with either me or another graduate student to kind of practice their skills and develop their own personalized program. But we found that that was very effective, and we followed up with them later on, and most of them were still active. Some of them said it hurt, like they had plantar fasciitis and some other things that were really bothering them. But a lot of them found that it was a lot more, it developed their confidence a lot more. And that's a huge thing for people who are new or are overweight, that they just don't have that self-efficacy that they can complete those tasks. So we found that education is really, really important, and like building self-efficacy. So setting small goals and showing them that they can do this, and proving to them that they can do it so that they can stick with it.
Yeah. So a lot of it was knowledge, but also the knowledge that they knew that they could do it as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Very cool. So you're teaching people all these other different exercises, running them through that. What did your fitness regimen look like? And then where did that all come from?
My current one, or what I was doing then?
What you were doing then.
Okay. So what I was doing then, I was teaching. So I was one of the only graduate assistants who taught aerobics classes. So all of my classes I was teaching, I was doing full out. Like some people got to actually do the weight training class where they would just get to walk around while their students were working out. No, I had to do aerobics and hoot and holler the whole time. So I was really starting to run myself into the ground. Like my knees were bothering me. I would take yoga classes here and there. I would take cycling classes here and there, but I really wasn't working out for myself, but I was still being super active at the time. So that's evolved a lot from then. So I was getting burnt out from teaching, and then I moved on to realizing like I could be in charge of something like this. So I thought I might want to stay for my PhD at Pitt, but kind of a blessing in disguise. It just didn't work out. And I'm happy that I was able to move on, and I started applying for jobs. And then I accepted a job as a group fitness coordinator at the University of South Florida. So I went down there.
That's a bit of difference.
Oh yeah, it was awesome. It was a great change of scenery. But I was down in Tampa, and I was overseeing a group fitness program down there. So I was able to teach a class or two a week, but I was able to teach students who are really interested in teaching and teach them what it means to program fitness and do all of that. And I wasn't running my body into the ground. So then I started to get a little more into just strength training on my own, just your standard bodybuilding workouts, just doing like upper lower body splits, nothing wild.
So were you getting that from the school? Were you getting it from an online program, from all your schooling? Like, where were you getting that kind of your splits from?
Oh, I was just making it up on my own.
Okay.
I was just writing my own stuff. I figured, like, with my degree and then some of my experience and stuff, I was like, I can write my own programs. And I did find that it was really difficult to stick with it like that. So it took my my boss for the first year that I was down there. So I was down there for 2 years. My first year, it was like every week she said, come to my gym, come to my gym. So she was a competitive weightlifter, like an
Okay.
Olympic weightlifter.
Nice.
And I was like, no, I'm too afraid. I'm like, I'm not strong enough. Like I've never held a front rack bar. I'm not doing this. So it took a year, almost a full year for her to convince me. And then I eventually did. And I went to her gym and I found out that her coach is actually from my hometown in Pennsylvania. And he ran cross country against us.
Wow.
But so I went in and I fell in love like instantly. So I've been training as an Olympic weightlifter since June of 2017. So that's been what I do. And that's the only program I've personally been able to ever stick with regularly and consistently for this long. Like it's been really awesome.
Yeah. So walk me through a week of training, or do you do, is it weekly? Is it quarter? What type of programs do you usually run?
So Zach usually programs things around competition. So typically we'll compete 4 to 5 times a year. And so we'll do like quarterly stuff, but sometimes if we're just doing small local competitions, it might fall in the middle of a cycle.
Yeah, just part of it.
Yeah. But so he'll have his like big yearly goals for us, or like we'll set them with him. And then we get our programs in like 4-week increments pretty much. So we progress on those every week. And typically, so when I was living down in Florida, I was training with him about 5 times a week. Or it started off as 3, then it moved to 4, and then I really got into it. So went to 5 times a week. And then we'll move on from there because eventually I came back here and I've gone down to about 4 times a week. But I would do Monday, Tuesday, off Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday.
So was it a just strictly Olympic lifting gym, or was it a CrossFit gym as well?
Nope, just Olympic lifting.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah, so it was cool. Just like literally a box with just platforms and plates and a couple other little things, but we didn't have a rig. We just had like a pull-up bar. Yeah, but just a strictly Ollie facility. He'd give us some Metcons to do on our own, but nothing. We couldn't call it CrossFit.
Right. That's good. So you just get started. Have you done Olympic lifts before? What was your introduction into it?
Yeah, so I didn't even put a barbell on my back until after I graduated from college. Like I just didn't. I didn't even really know how to squat. I never did a front squat in my life, unless you count them in like group fitness classes with like the little cutesy bars, which nothing wrong against that, but I'm just saying. But like I never did any of it. So I show up at so the gym's called Category 5 Athletics in Tampa, and I show up at Cat 5, and he put me through kind of like a movement analysis or a functional movement screening, and then we picked up a PVC pipe and just tried to move through some movement patterns. And it was like, he and I've had some really good conversations afterwards. And he was like, it was great that you were starting from essentially nothing, because you didn't come in with bad habits.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So it was really, really cool. And I picked up on snatches were the first thing I did. And he's like, I always teach people snatches first, because it's the biggest selling point. Because once you can do a snatch, you're like, oh, I could do anything. So then people get really excited. So we started with snatches, and I like loved them. They came really quick. And then, we just progressed from there. But lots of empty bar and PVC pipe work, and not many people want to stick with that to begin with. But so it took a little while, but then once you start to get like weight moving and stuff, and I'm such a numbers person, so it was really cool to see like how numbers progress, like very gradually, but like how you can still see like smaller improvements, like almost. It was so cool.
I'm laughing because you say an empty bar, PVC, because if you walk into a CrossFit gym, like they're warming up maybe with 10s on the bar, maybe, because it's all about numbers. But if you look at a lot of the CrossFit totals, as far as the clean and jerk or the snatch, like most of the men's stuff, they're 50, 70 to 100 pounds off of the Olympic weightlifters, just because they're working on different things. But so what was it like? Was it kind of like you're in gymnastics again, since it wasn't every week it's going to be massive, but it was just we're doing it one after another?
Yeah. So it did feel like a lot like gymnastics. Like it kind of brings back memories of like, you feel like you're an athlete again, and it just, you feel like your accountability is there because someone put the effort to write you a program and to send you feedback and to be there for you and expect you to be there. That was the first time people expected to see me in the gym. And I'm like, oh, shit, I gotta go. And then
It helps.
you build friends there so quickly. And they're like, if you miss a day, they're like, where were you? And it was that level of accountability. And then I just the sport itself, I ended up really, really loving.
Yeah. So obviously great workouts and stuff, but what are competitions like? What was your first one like?
Oh my gosh, it was so cool. That was like my best competition too. But when I signed up with the gym, my coach said, within the first year, I have every one of my athletes compete, like not anything crazy, but a local competition. You only have to do one. If you realize competing isn't for you, you don't have to do it. And I'll still keep you on. But he said, it helps me with advertising for the gym and it helps build you with your confidence and like your goal setting. So my first competition was in February of 2019. Yeah. And I went, so how the competitions go, you get 3 attempts at a snatch and then 3 attempts at a clean and jerk. So I went 6 for 6 and I've competed 6 times. And that was the only time I've ever done that. But still, I went 6 for 6 and it was just like such a thrill. It was so cool. And it was kind of funny. He said the week before he makes everyone lift in their singlet for the first time. He's like, a lot of people are really uncomfortable. I was like, I've spent my entire life in glittery leotards. I don't care.
I got this.
I was like, that does not bother me.
Yeah.
I was like, so it was a really, really cool experience. And I just wanted to keep competing. So that first year after that, I competed like 5 times in a year.
Wow.
And then I spent almost this whole last year not competing. And then I just competed about 2 weeks ago.
So what kind of number? So also, so you had to be in a weight class, correct? So did he suggest cutting, or he said, you're here, let's keep you here?
All right. So where I was close to the weight that I was at when I was in college, but like I knew my body looked different, but I wasn't happy where I was with my weight at the time.
Right.
So my coach was absolutely adamantly against me cutting. He said, your first competition is about getting yourself out there. I don't care where you're at. And then I, being the person I am, I was like, I'm not putting that number next to my name of like my weight class, which is so messed up. It didn't matter at all.
Yeah. If you don't mind sharing, what was that number?
Yeah. So it's all in kilos. So I didn't want to compete as a 64. I wanted to compete as a 59. Okay. So 64, 59 is 129.
Okay.
Whatever 64 is whatever, 11 pounds.
2.2. Someone else can do it.
Yeah. Math is hard. That's not my job. I think it was like 143 versus 130 or something like that. So I told myself, I was like, I can do it. I want to get down there. And that was the first time in my life I consistently counted macros from 3 months out. I started right the day after Thanksgiving. I gave myself a little leeway over Christmas, but then I like really just like stuck with it. And I know I was counting macros for myself and a number that I thought I could stick to, but I knew by the end of it, when things were getting heavy and I was really close to competition prep, I wasn't eating enough. Like I'd stand up for my cleans and I'd see stars and I'd be like, oh, let's see if this goes up.
Yeah. But, so what was your macros and like, what was your deficit as far as what you're going for?
Okay. So I did this just a ballpark in my head, like an idiot. And I was eating 1,200 calories a day, 40%, right? It's painful. I was doing 40, 40, 20. So I was doing 40 carbs, 40 protein and 20% fat. Yeah. So I just like, I've played with those numbers so much since, and I feel like my, so I don't live even after that. Like I don't live at my weight class. It's just not comfortable for me to be there. So I'll live at like 60, like 61, 62 ish. And then like, I'll have like a slow gradual cut when I do it right. And I've done it right 2 times after that. I still had a couple crash ones that's the best way to say it, is that it was a crash. But I just found like recently, like what my body needs to be like alert and to feel like I have energy and not be shaky and not see stars when I lift. So I can walk around a lot better. Like I said, I'm like a short person. So me walking around with like 1,600 calories when I'm on a cut is usually like pretty good and doable. Yeah. So that's kind of like where I've been. And I know some of those numbers can be like triggering and they're not perfect. I just know kind of how my body's worked.
Right.
But
For you, those numbers is what worked.
yeah. And I know that's like, because whenever I talk about that stuff, I feel like people are like, oh, that, I'm like, I'm 5 feet tall.
Yeah.
But also whatever.
Yeah.
So I usually don't count my macros and stuff normally living because I've had like episodes of being obsessed and then falling off and things that way. So
Absolutely.
I try to be a lot more intuitive when I'm in between competition cycles and just kind of see where I'm at.
So what does maintenance look like for you? Does that look like meal prepping, meal planning, or it's just, hey, I'm going to eat this food and I'm full, I'm done eating?
Yeah, so I prep just for the sake of like I work kind of like longer hours anyways. So I'll prep my lunch and my dinners, and it's funny that when I was growing up, it's like you don't eat like meat and potatoes or meat and a rice for like lunch. You don't eat like a meal in the middle of the day for some reason, but now it's like I'll eat like real meals like 2 or 3 times a day, and that's fine. Like I was in such a stigma of like you eat breakfast food at breakfast, you eat like a sandwich or a wrap at lunch. You may have a snack here and there, and then you eat like a real dinner. And I'm like, that doesn't work for me.
Yeah.
So eating like real food throughout the day has been a lot more beneficial for me.
Yeah. And I would say most people, if they were trying to kind of get to where you are, they would try that 1,200 calorie approach. And then once they get to where you are, they're like, what do I do now?
Oh,
so
it's horrible. Yeah. And
so when you do a cut that is if for us that are not in kilos, you had to lose like 4 pounds. Is that to get down to your weight from your walking around?
So typically it comes between like 5 or around like 5-ish.
Okay.
So that's typically where I like to live my life. Like I've, especially this past year, I was living a little heavier because I spent the first 2 months of quarantine like just drinking one with my mom. So she packed on a couple pounds this year, but we got it down. Made weight, didn't do anything super crazy to cut down. But so I usually will start my cut so for this last competition, I told myself I was like really going to try to do it right and not do anything crazy radical, to do like anything more than maybe a light water cut if I had to at the end. So a month out, I did sober October. So a month out, I just like didn't drink. And that helped. Not that I'm an alcoholic. Like I promise I could say no. I just choose not to a lot. But so I just like didn't drink for a month, and then really just monitored. So for the first like 2 weeks, I just monitored what I was eating and what like was happening with my body, and then I started to cut down a little bit. I usually was only counting my macros about like 4 or 5 times throughout the week, and then after doing it a while, I know where I'm at. Like I eat pretty much the same stuff, so it kept me from obsessing and going crazy. And if I wanted a little bit more, I could have a little bit more, and I didn't have to be like flat out, I need 130 grams of carbs today, or not grams of carbs, grams of protein today, and that is it. Like if I went a little bit under, but that was my main number that I always tried to hit though, was protein. I felt
so you went 1 for 1 for grams to pounds of goal body weight.
I really when I do count macros, that's the only thing I really focus on. I try to be a little more like obviously I don't go crazy. Like I stay within a calorie goal, and I make sure I hit my protein, and then if carbs and fat are not perfect, it's still okay. But I know
we'll make it.
We'll be all right. As long as I don't feel gross, I feel like that's all that really counts at that point. And I didn't realize like the protein thing until a little bit later on. And it just comes down to recovery, because when you're getting close to a competition, you're throwing heavy weight around a lot more. And you need the energy to do it, but just like the amount of recovery, it was just crazy. And I noticed not even just in my muscles, but in my joints, like my joints were bothering me when I would get closer to it. And this past cycle was not bad at all.
So since you upped your protein, since you had your protein, what was the change that you're saying you're feeling better from?
Well, I felt better that I didn't do, so that I was eating enough, and then I was also like recovering. So I just wasn't sore and I had
Yeah.
enough energy to do my lifts.
Yes.
But I think what like I mentally felt the best after this one because I didn't have to do like a really like sick cut at the end. Like I usually do a water cut and then there's been times that I've just done a complete like carb depletion because for every gram of carbohydrates you have, it holds 2 grams of water. So when people cut out carbs, that's why you lose weight so fast, is because you lose water weight.
Don't give away the secret.
Shoot, we didn't discuss this. Sorry. But yeah, if you're gonna just deplete your carbs and you're not gonna have any energy. So by the time I try to move a barbell, I'm like seeing stars, I'm shaking.
Mm-hmm. So, and you said you did have a couple cuts to where that's what you needed to do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I've had a couple of those where I've gone as like bad as like laxatives and stuff, and then you just like get to the point. And I drink a lot of caffeine, so like before I lifted, I would drink like a Bang and like I would be literally almost convulsing when I go to grab the barbell.
Yeah.
So I also have stopped drinking full Bangs. I'll have like a couple sips of one if I need a little whoop,
Yeah.
but I don't drink them as much because I feel like gotta take care of the ticker now.
Probably a good move. So I mean, it sounds like, so what type of competitions are we getting into? So if we're doing those bigger cuts, like they probably had to be for a decent sized competition.
Yeah, so I competed in states last summer, and then last September I competed in the American Open series, which it was in Daytona.
Very
So
cool.
that's like a 3-part series, and then they have like finals of the nationals. But I competed at AO3 down in Daytona last year, and then I just did a local one recently just to get back on a platform.
Yeah, that's awesome. So what, as far as from year to year, what do your numbers, or does your coach look for X amount of pounds per year, or what's his kind of info, or what is he going off?
So from my year 1 to year 2, I had like a really big increase in how well I was lifting, but this past year, as you can just imagine, like there was like huge setbacks with stuff. So at the facility I work at now, we do have some bumper plates that I took home and I left them in my car, and I built a squat rack with my mom.
Nice. So, what did you use? 2x4s?
2x4s and cement buckets.
Yes, I saw that on TikTok. I'm like, man, I'm glad that I bought an $84 squat rack from Amazon like 5 years ago. If you shake it too hard or look at it, it might fall apart, but it still works.
Yeah, no, we built one and we painted it Penn State colors, obviously. So it got the job done, but it wasn't really quite the same. I didn't have like change plates, and I moved, but I did lose a lot of like my strength, and I just like I just fell off, and I know it was like no one to blame but myself, but I
mean, the world's kind of going through a whole thing.
Yeah, 2020 doesn't count. But so I was doing really well like in my second year, like really started to see the changes in not only the pounds that I was putting up, but like my ability to like move the bar was so much increased from that first year to the second year. My coach's line for it, he's like, the first bar is getting you, or the first year is to get you to move a barbell. The second year is to get you to move it well.
Yeah.
So, and then from there is like the weight comes after that. So I gradually was making some PRs after that. And like now I feel like I had some setbacks, and I just am getting back on the up train again. So I'm getting stronger now, and currently in just like a squat cycle, just get the legs moving some things around.
So how many days a week are you squatting?
I'll squat probably like 3 days a week, like 2 days back squat, 1 day front squat right now.
Yeah.
Or actually, yeah. And then we'll do some like tempo stuff in there. We'll do some like light tempo work or pause work. And then lots of just like lower body accessory stuff too.
Yeah. So I feel like I have a decent understanding of the fitness aspect of these things. But as far as tempo goes, what is tempo, and then why tempo?
Yeah, so tempo, so you can be focusing on the concentric or the eccentrics on the way down or the way up. So I'll focus a lot more on the like eccentric point. So it's like you do like count to 3 on your way down, pause at the bottom, and then an explosive power up. So with Olympic weightlifting, you want to focus on that explosivity out of the hole. So when you hit like your bottom part of your squat, you want to focus on like getting up with speed. So I would focus on going down slow, being controlled under the heavy weight, and then trying to explode out of the hole with no momentum. So that's kind of how we worked it.
What does the eccentric do for the muscles? Is it time under tension? It just is a different way to get you stronger, or what's the
more so time
adaptation?
Under tension. Okay. Yeah, more so time under tension. For me also, it's helping like my posture with it, like just also like back development as you're like sitting there, like pulling the weight down and like being in control of your posture on the way down has helped. But overall strength.
Yeah, very nice. So that's where we're at. We're at 2020. We're ramping back up strength and everything in that nature.
We are.
Very nice. Well, to wrap it up, what's your definition of health? Not necessarily the dictionary definition, but what do you strive for, and what do you determine that health is?
I think it's evolved for me over the years so much, but I think it's having that mindfulness of what's going on in your body, both physically and mentally. So it's making better choices every single day that can be both fueling for your physical health and your, I shouldn't say health in the definition, but your physical well-being as well as your mental well-being as well. So making sure that you're giving your body correct nutrients, that you're moving it well, and you're managing your stress is usually how I define health and being the healthiest version of yourself. Very nice. And then if somebody was going to take something from your life for this podcast to use in their life, what do you think would be beneficial for them? I would say that knowledge is power. I would say that really, if you want to be better at anything, whether it is a sport, a craft, or just your overall health, learn about it and learn from credible resources and really start to apply that knowledge to every decision you make. I think I find that the more you know, the more you want to know. So make it part of your education, even if you're out of school. Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you very much for coming on the podcast. You're welcome. Thanks for having me. Absolutely. Well, there we go. That's so cool. That was great. Thanks. Sorry, I feel like I was